watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you. Just watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you, catch you, catch you. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I wanna do is be the coolest cat here. But I'll need some more super burrito. But I need some more super burrito. But I need some more super burrito. Suck it. You're a scrawny little mouse taking over this old house, waiting for my chance to shine. I am gonna make you mine. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I wanna do is be the coolest cat here. But I'll need some more super burrito. Spend a lot of extra time waiting for the acolyte. I am gonna catch that fool. You will think I'm really cool. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I wanna do is be the coolest cat here. But I'll need some more super burrito. Just watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you. Just watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you, catch you, catch you. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I wanna do is be the coolest cat here. But I'll need some more super burrito. But I need some more super burrito. But I need some more super burrito.
Hello, MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday for June 7, 2019. Hello, everyone in the chat. How's everybody doing today? Hello back to you as well, everyone. Salim, Josh, Beth, Ben, Stejan, Chua, Laura, Angela, Lady Nutsy, Peter, Sally, Claire, Jacob, Thomas, Taraco, Daniel, TSX12, Toronto Stock Exchange is here. Hello, hello. Well, today, as I continue to caffeinate, today was going to be a live painting video with Jacob. However, he usually works from home when he streams, and we have a team meeting this afternoon that he wanted to be here to be a part of. So with that in mind, there's not too many new things to share or get feedback on since last week's stream, since I was on last week as well. So I thought we'd give everybody a quick update on where the Valour Rift is before we can kind of get into some questions and answers from the chat, do a little Q&A. So kind of maybe put on your thinking caps there, jot down some notes as well, or some questions, and we'll give everyone an update on the Valour Rift, and then we'll just kind of take questions from the chat, hang out for a little bit. Without further ado, let me find out where did I go? I'll make myself smaller here. So a quick little Valour Rift update. Like I said, not too many new things to share since last week's stream. Things are continuing to come together well. In case you weren't here last week, quick little summary is that it's themed after the King's Gauntlet, so it's the Valour Rift, but that being the predominant area in the region, it's themed primarily after the King's Gauntlet. It's going to challenge hunters to hunt their way up to the top of the gauntlet to face off against a Rift version of the Eclipse mouse, and defeating the Eclipse unlocks a higher prestige that you can then take on to make the gauntlet more challenging and also more rewarding. So it kind of has a theme of infinite replayability. Every time you take on the Rift Gauntlet and you make it to the top in time to capture the Eclipse, and if you're currently completing the hardest version or the highest prestige that you have unlocked, that unlocks the next one. You can go through the whole thing and it's harder the second time. There's going to be, now that said, it's just sort of somewhat infinitely replayable because there still kind of exists a cap at just how high you can push that prestige before it just gets way too tough before new Rift equipment will come out. There'll be plenty of power-ups and items to earn though in the area, so every time you finish a run you'll get a stockpile of consumable fuel and stuff like that to help make you stronger and push up one level higher. Hey, you just printed something, eh?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but I guess it's an interrupting kind of situation normally, isn't it? Hello, my friends.
Get used to the printer in this room.
Yes. Well, yeah, the other day when you were like, you did the same, you printed something, and then you crept in. Oh, I was on the phone at the time,
yeah.
And I was going to be like, hold on a sec, because I thought you were coming to talk to me, but you were like, you crept over to the printer. Your fan is having a fun,
yeah, I was trying to see if I could
time.
Turn something down.
The Jew invasion starts early today. Yes, it does. Normally it's not 4 minutes in, but it just so happened to line up with a printing press situation.
Yeah, close probably not entirely though.
This is cable return number 2 for the monitor laptop situation.
Return slip.
But now I can do it myself. I don't have to email Brian. Like, can you return from your account and send me the email? I'll print it. Because I did it all on my side. One side of it.
Old side, or do the ship.
Oh, thank you, Anna. Head looks sexy. Thanks very much. PPG. You know what I'm saying, Dave?
You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
I shut down all I could. Yeah, computer's
I think
freaking
it's
out.
just when you're processing video, it's like, okay.
Usually it takes a while though.
You are plugged in. Oh, I thought that was the monitor or something, and I thought it was like trying to do extra work. So I'll come back. I'll reinvade at the usual time, or maybe not if I get busy. So it's a busy day. So there you go.
Enjoy your packing slip.
Thank you very much, Dave. Take care.
Feeling.
Anyone know that reference? Let me know if they know it.
All right.
Okay.
I'll get a Venn diagram ready.
Oh, and then the two hands, and then where they meet is
Yeah.
the overlap.
Yeah, that's the overlap.
Memes,
yeah. Fans go, well, fan is calming down. Maybe it was a Giorgio detector, my fan. Glasses are extremely dirty. I'm convinced I'm seeing worse with them on. Thomas has a suggestion for the Rift detector upgrade. Use some Rift circuitry, upgrade module to detect new Rift, cog and battery fragments. That's kind of neat, something from all the existing Rift areas. So to kind of act as a big step up in terms of theme and everything. You're taking on the first Archduke area. It's a King's Gauntlet, a Rift version. You need a little bit of something from all the other Rifts to kind of proven that you've explored the Rift plane sufficiently. Sean says, update on the Valor cheese idea. That was more, so that might have been a little out of context, a more sort of potential alternative, but I don't think that would be implemented after the fact. So it would be more if we kind of had that idea before Queso Canyon even came out. Smash your Codex and Null Gauntlet. That sounds painful. We need to have a nice background banner for each gauntlet level. That's a good idea, actually. I'm going to pass that along to the art team. To have the header illustration change as you're going up the gauntlet. It's coming along well. Still might be a little bit. Our goal is to try to get this out this year before event season. That said, there's a lot of moving parts because it's anything that's sort of meant to be somewhat infinitely replayable. There's a lot of uncertainties there. There's a lot of kind of number crunching to do. This week we explored primarily the heads-up display. We are also working through some of the tower balance for unlocking higher and higher prestige as well. But like I said, it's a challenge to get that just right when it's something that can technically go on forever. But we made some pretty good progress this week, so I'm hoping first thing Monday we'll be able to actually start playing through it in a little bit more of a serious capacity outside of just being a prototype. And that should give us a better feel for where we're at. But we're also looking for ideas and suggestions for the rewards that you would like to see from Valour Rift as well, so you can certainly get brainstorming there. We'll take some suggestions. It's neat that the prestige system does lend itself well to some unique reward unlocking. We could definitely put loot drops at higher level of prestige, so you have to kind of make it so high in the tower, capture the eclipse so many times before drops start coming in. There was kind of an idea, I think I mentioned last week as well, of a base that will get stats that get stronger and stronger as you unlock higher tiers of prestige, and then so if you get a really high level prestige, you could take that base elsewhere and that'll be really strong as well. It's kind of a neat idea that's been floating around. Salim says, how many levels of prestige are there? Theoretically, there would be infinite, so there wouldn't be a cap on it, but realistically, it'll eventually get so difficult that you've sort of gotten as high as you can go without taking sort of obscene, extraordinary measures or something. But that's neat every time some new Rift equipment comes out. That might just be the little edge that somebody needs to push it one higher whenever they get a new trap. Or if you have a nice little stockpile of, say, Rift Ultimate Luck or Rift Ultimate Power Charms as well, every once in a while you might be like, okay, well, the Great Winter Hunt came around and I'm sitting on a few hundred of these. If I use them the entire time, that might just give me that edge I need. Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that, but that's kind of a little bit of a theme going there. Thomas says the use cork to make cork charm using aromatic oil to increase corky attraction rate. I don't know if we would tie in the aromatic oil. We did discuss an idea last week to use just a large amount of cork to make kind of a cork flavored queso that would bring corky around a little bit more often. I'm kind of in favor of that because if you're hunting for corky, you should be using flaming cheese is the best way to go. It's got about, I think, about an 8% chance to attract corky. But flaming cheese also gets you a lot of cork. So if you get unlucky, if you go on an unlucky binge there and you go 1, 2, even 300 hunts without corky, which would be pretty hard to do actually, you'll be sitting on this tons of cork, and you might actually have more cork than you could possibly use in a reasonable time frame. So that's just a nice use to just drain it all back out, help you get corky. And then you're sort of back at square one again. Suzanne says, bait keep? I don't think the Valour Rift will particularly have any difficult to acquire bait, so I don't think that would be the most useful charm in the Valour Rift. Ben says, if you kick the door in the room ice, do you get to loot the room? No, there's not really any rooms in the Gauntlet. It'll be more. There's definitely phases. It follows the theme of the original Gauntlet, where you start with puppets and you end with, I think, what was it, necromancers on floor 7. But it's more kind of steps. You're taking steps up the tower as you go, and at certain steps you move into the next theme. And the last step of each theme is a champion that's probably about twice as strong as the other mice, so it's a little bit of a barrier to push back. Stejan says, to go completely off topic, is it intentional this year to have no area boosting things besides the Feroma base? Yeah, I don't know, probably not intentional, just didn't come up. That said, the year's not over, so there might be some area specific stuff going on. Caleb says, sidetrack a bit. A friend was telling me that they could expand on the use of Dragon Amber with QRG. Might not happen. Maybe do me a favor, don't use acronyms just in case. I have no idea because I don't know what QRG is. Yeah, I don't know what my thoughts are. New codex for first Archduke area. Yeah, that's a potential reward idea to let you upgrade your codex one more time. It's certainly kind of a big step up. Tier 8 cheese drop, perhaps, says Salim. There will be no tiers of cheese in the Gauntlet, so it'll be kind of, you use your string cheese. We are going to have a Gauntlet-themed string cheese as well. That'll give you a little extra edge. That said, you don't have to use it, but when you're pushing really, really high prestige and it gets tough, there'll be one more thing you can have in your repertoire to kind of get every little advantage you can. MLC asks, once higher prestige is unlocked, will we be able to go up and down rather than being locked into a sequence? You can, when you begin the tower, right now, again, work in progress here, but it's kind of good to discuss things and get people's impressions while it's a work in progress. When you choose to enter the tower, so there's kind of these two phases, you can think of it a little bit like Valour Rift works, where you're outside the pagoda, then inside the pagoda. So you can collect some cheese and some basic items, and then you choose when you want to enter the gauntlet and take on the challenge. You can choose to start it at any level prestige in which you have unlocked. So if the current highest prestige is a little too tough at the moment, you can dial it back, complete that run, earn some rewards to upgrade yourself, and then try the harder one. But once you're in, you're sort of locked into your progress. You can't choose to drop down to the puppet floor and then jump up to the noble floor or something like that. So it's a bit like, I guess, the sunken city. You're always moving forward into the things that are coming at you. Robert says loves the base idea. Yeah, it's definitely something we're going to keep in mind. I'm in favor of it as well. It's a very interesting, unique reward for sure. I feel something too very compelling and appropriate for an Archduke level area to kind of have a new endgame base. But it takes a bit of a time commitment to slowly but surely build up the base's stats. But it will come down to kind of final play testing to see if we can make that work. Way says ultimate charm sync. For sure, that's one extraordinary measure you could pull out when the prestige level gets obscenely high and now the mice are all extremely, extremely difficult to catch. Ultimate charms will be useful there. Ultimate charm all the way to infinity. I think the tower at the moment, again, it's all kind of work in progress, is it's working out well to be about 225 steps tall, so somewhere around the 200 to 300 mark. That said, I think it would be quite unreasonable to have thousands of ultimate charms to do it the whole way through, but it might be a good situational tool to kind of help squeak out just that little extra edge you need. Can we nuke through the area with just a bunch of ultimate charms to out prestige? Asks Stesian. Yes, although that would be kind of very hard to sustain long term. So it might be something good when you reach a level that it's just getting obscenely difficult. You could push it one higher. Define large amount of cork. Well, that would be kind of subject to play testing and stuff as well. We'd have to kind of crunch some numbers to see on average how much cork do you have, or what's the expected amount of cork to loot while you're going after Corky with flaming, and then we probably see kind of where the deviation lies of where is it sort of no longer statistically significant, the chance of no longer attracting Corky. We'd see how much cork that is, and then we'd probably make the batch of cheese cost somewhere around that. So it'd be probably minus the cost of a couple corks. So it would be a lot, but off the top of my head, I don't know what that number would work out to be. Richard says, will there be any mini events this year? Yes, we are planning a mini event for Queso Canyon, and that'll probably come... Oh, I forget now. This is June. I think that is planned for August if all goes according to plan. And you'll be able to turn your queso pumps up to 11 for a short period of time. Crank out pump some more queso, some bonus loot drops as well. But that's still kind of being put together. QRG equals Queso Rift Geyser. Queso Rift Geyser. I still don't know what a Queso Rift Geyser is. Can we have cheese like Empowered Brie in case it gets too hard? That's an interesting suggestion, to have kind of an empowered string cheese. Sally says, is there a retreat in case you want to start over at a different prestige level? In the current design, it doesn't. We'll keep that in mind. I think what we would do when we add retreats going forward is make them so you have to kind of unlock it somehow. One challenge we had with the labyrinth was when people were first starting out, just kind of learning how to do the labyrinth, they'd get very upset about having a couple dead end clues, and they would retreat because they didn't get their perfect start. And I think they just spun their wheels when really they just needed to kind of get through some runs, get the labyrinth base, upgrade themselves, and they'd be better off. That's in the current iteration of the Valour Rift. You always get a reward, even if you don't capture the Eclipse. Now, obviously, capturing the Eclipse gives you a nice, juicy bonus reward, but it's always worthwhile to finish out the run rather than retreat. But that's it. If we did have a retreat, it might let you just kind of claim the rewards at whatever step you made it to, or as how high you made it into the gauntlet. Ryan says, what's really wrong? I already went for 10 epic loots, still haven't got the rib yet. Dave, please help. It is rare, for sure. And that's a little bit polarizing, the reward structure of the Queso Geyser. It is definitely big jackpot kind of reward structure. That said, it's a mix. The other traps are not that similar kind of reward structure. They require 3, so their drop rates are a little bit higher because you need more of them. And they also have the Amber Queso as a bit of a fallback, whereas the Rib just has gold as the only fallback. You have to buy it from the marketplace. So certainly that's polarizing. There's going to be a group of players who find that extremely exciting, and there's going to be groups of players that find that more frustrating because they enjoy more things that they can just park there for however many months it takes and mission accomplished sort of thing at the end. So yeah, with that in mind, it's not a reward structure we're going to have in every single area, but every now and then that reward structure will come up in a new area. It kind of follows sort of the war path, the way that works as well. It takes a very long time to build your way up to the warmonger, and then he's got a pretty low drop rate on all of his parts. Zaki says, allow stacking the golden shield. That for sure has always been kind of a bit of an awkwardness of the shield. When it was originally added to the game, it was kind of meant as a sort of free t-shirt with every purchase kind of concept, and we didn't estimate how valuable hunters would think or perceive the golden shield, and I mean, it does have a pretty good value to it, the +7 luck. Unfortunately, the way the pricing structure works, there's really not a way to make it stack, right? Like, it'd be weird if you could do 4 individual purchases of $1 and get 4 months, or 1 purchase of $50 and get 4 months. Seems a little bit weird. So we haven't quite come up with the perfect solution. We've explored things where instead of getting shield, you get an item like a shield shine or a shield charge, and the default is, hey, you get a month of that, but then you could crank it up a little bit higher and burn up the charges faster, and then we could introduce a more linear scale in terms of how much, how large of a purchase you made versus how much you get. But for now, it's not broke, so we're not fixing it sort of situation. And until we find kind of the perfect solution, I don't think we would change it. And I am out of sorts in the chat. I may have to scroll back down to the bottom here. Moo says, will bait keeps be useful? Someone asked that a little bit earlier, and probably not particularly. There's not really any extremely difficult to get cheese. That takes a long time to farm up the cheese. There's sort of other items that you're collecting that take time to farm up. So bait keeps probably won't be the most useful. Daniel says, when will the daily cheese update to include queso? It might be a little while. So the King's Calibrator, a lot of it is what we call compression. And so MouseHunt being a game with 10 years of history, there's certainly a lot to go through. So somebody signing up today to start playing, to sort of reach the point where they're playing with friends that have been playing for years, it might take them 5 years to catch up to that point, which is a little bit unreasonable. So part of the calibrator is a kind of compression to make the earlier areas a little bit faster. I mean, without completely diminishing accomplishments there, but just to speed things up a little bit so that the overall time it takes to work your way through some of the storylines is a more reasonable number. With that in mind, we tend to wait until areas are a little bit older before we start compressing them like that. So it might be a little bit of time before you see something like medium queso in the King's Calibrator or the King's Arms. Jacob says, is it possible to introduce variations among Rift traps like Rift Physical, Rift Hydro? Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't know if we'd necessarily explore it, though. It's kind of set in, the pattern sort of set in the way the rifts are laid out. Zaki says, increasing the queso pump quantities since the geyser kind of diminishes the usefulness of hunting there to farm bland queso. For sure, that's intentional, though, I think, is that sort of the river runs its course eventually, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's much more exciting and interesting to be able to collect your bland queso from the geyser rather than having to sit in the river and just pump over and over again. That said, it's a very nice area if you are kind of on vacation or you're not going to be checking in very often. Super passive way to just build up a stash of bland queso. Kind of compare it a little bit to the Fungal Cavern versus Labyrinth in terms of collecting glowing Gruyere. The Fungal Cavern's nice, set it and forget it. You could just farm up some fungus and nightshade. Whereas the Labyrinth, to do those runs, you're going to have to be checking in every couple hours to choose a new hallway and that sort of thing. Are there gonna be new Rift traps added or just upgrades to current traps? That's what we're looking for suggestions for. We want to see kind of what rewards you'd like to see out of the Valour Rift. It could go either way. A lot of it's going to come down to play testing it, seeing just how long and how much effort has to go into reaching certain prestige levels, and that'll give us some good context to figure out if there's an opportunity to place maybe a trap that's better than the time split dissonance trap, but it takes long enough to earn that you still want to have the time split dissonance so that you can use it at the King's or at the Valour Rift to be able to unlock the next trap. Whereas if that doesn't lie into the time doesn't quite make sense, it might be an upgrade to the time split dissonance then. Lucky Golden Shield needs to be changed for event map chests. Can't use the items to maximize Lucky Golden Shield. For sure, it's kind of an awkwardness of how the shield works. That's I have not kind of found the perfect solution to that. So it's going to be, that's how it works. That's how it works for now. In the meantime, keep in mind too in the King's Arms and the King's Cart, you can pick up a Super Breeze supply pack as well for a quick little 3-day shield as well. Could we get different colored shields instead of the gold shield? Asks Claire. That was one idea that we were thinking about exploring to try to solve the conundrum of making the shield times more linear with the amount spent. But for now, it is kind of meant as a small little bonus, a little kind of thank you of like, hey, thanks for supporting the game every 1 to 4 months and just popping in even if it's 99 cents. That was the original intention around the shield, was like, cool, a little thanks, a little reminder on your campsite that you helped support the game that month. Ryan says, frustrating because I want to have the most powerful Draconic trap and then I can quit Geyser Hunt forever, be prepared for new Valour Rift to open. Well, you can go at your own pace for sure, and I know it's kind of, you want to sink your teeth and get through everything as quick as possible. The sooner you complete everything, the sooner that you're waiting for new stuff. So I would just say go at your own pace, pick your goals, and I think it's nice and interesting to always have more goals than to have no goals at all. Eileen says, what's a vacation? Brian says, calcified rift mist, been collecting dust in my inventory. Any new uses planned? None at the moment. If anything, maybe crafting new powerful charms or something. Umli says, some time ago you mentioned upgrades for the monolith base. Any plans about it? Probably something when we get around to overhauling Digby, but it's a little bit lower on the priority list. Thomas says, a new base upgrade to clockwork, require clockwork. Finally, the clock idea of stacking can be added. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one. Eric's waving at Eileen. Meyer says, vacation where you don't have Wi-Fi to play the game. I'm with Eileen here. Do not understand those words. I think that's happened to me a few times, maybe doing like a cruise or something like that. When you're out at sea, you don't have internet. At least I don't know. It's spring for the international roaming package, I guess. Level 2 Charm Conduit for Valour Rift? No, probably not. I don't think we'll ever see different levels of Charm Conduit. Thought the geyser was bland queso negative. It used more than it outputs. Actually, epic eruptions are arguably the best way to farm your bland queso and your wildfire ingredients. So it takes a little bit of foresight, and if you ever sort of run out or hit 0 again, then you do kind of have to start over again at the plains. But if you keep a good pace to sort of how you're doing it, you manage your resources well, doing the epic runs are a much more efficient way to get those materials while also earning lots of gold and also having a chance at hitting a jackpot loot drop as you go as well. But the key to that is to just not use wildfire too much. That's sort of the key metric that you want to tune and find just the right amount of wildfire that you burn up during your epic, and then switch over to flaming, and you'll kind of slowly accumulate more and more wildfire as you do that. Could library-like assignments be added to the Valour Rift? The library assignments are a little bit on hold. We'd like to overhaul the area, but they have some challenges with them, so I don't think we'd explore that again until we can overhaul the library. Valor's Rift doesn't quite scroll off the tongue. I don't think it would be possessive. It would just be Valour Rift. MLC says perhaps an upgrade rather than a new trap, and have the upgrade only effective in the new area. That's a potential there's potential for that because the area is so, I don't know what the right word for it is, but because it has that infinite replayability, it's definitely compelling. Every single little bonus you can get in the area eventually will be very compelling to have as the difficulty keeps getting cranked up higher and higher. Max says maybe nerf bland queso and Grand Tour chess really getting a little too easy for players to get through queso geyser in a day or two. Yeah, for sure. If you invite people who are just starting the area, that's a pretty good reward to start off with. But all in all, the area, the amount in there is balanced with the number of mice on the map and how long it takes to get all the mice on the map, and then sort of divide it by 5. So if 5 people all split up and they just started to try to collect bland queso as efficiently as possible, they will come out ahead than somebody doing maps over and over again. But certainly inviting somebody to your map and who has never done the area before, they're going to get a nice head start. But I think that's kind of neat that you can work together with friends and kind of adds a social element of collecting your resources. You can be cooperative and work together on that. Should the train station get a rework? Don't like the concept of global events, but the area is a literal desert. Yeah, for sure. I think some of the law areas are a little bit not as strong as they could be, but no plans anyway right now. Kind of have bigger fish to fry or mice to catch, I guess I should say. Buffy says, I'd like my shield to go red when I'm down to 2 days or so. I have a mini heart attack every time I see it's gray. That's not a bad idea. I know in the mobile app, there is something there, and actually this has been misaligned. There's a bug report to fix this. But in the mobile app, you have the golden shield on your camp section there, and that will turn, I believe it turns red, or perhaps it glows kind of a warning yellow or orange when it's getting low. That would be kind of interesting to add it to the browser version. KDM says 2,500 hunts to run 1 round of the Rift Gauntlet. At the moment, we're playing around with the number 255. So you can kind of think it's a tower with steps, and there's 255. Actually, technically 256 steps because the eclipse is after the 255th step. But that said, you'll also kind of spend some time collecting resources and preparing for that run, depending on how high level of prestige you're taking on. Zapke says, I want to see a community goal global event to be back to. It's been a challenge coming up with a number that is compelling for all hunters. So it's something we've kind of shied away from the times that we've tried it in the past. Hasn't worked too well. Would love to see some new library assignments. Absolutely, it's chilling out in the idea bank, and it's something that I'm excited to kind of overhaul the library, but unfortunately we haven't quite been able to make an argument to make it a priority yet, because it would also be a very large-scale release. And so we're kind of prioritizing high-level areas. At the moment, definitely needed some an Archduke area in the game, as well as we are always working on kind of improving the very first parts of the game as well. So we've had a lot of great success overhauling the town in Ania, the meadow, the windmill, the mountain, the mausoleum, and the laboratory were the last ones we did as well. And it's great that now new players signing up, we kind of measure how far they get, and every time we do a little pass on that, they get a little further, which is good for the long-term health of the game to have new players coming in. So that's kind of where our 2 efforts are, right at the very end of the game and right at the very beginning of the game. I'd say we're probably devoting a little bit more time to the end of the game at the moment, though. But that just kind of makes it hard to find the resources to work on things in the middle of the game right now. Will there be any way to switch off from being taken on a hunt with friend besides unbaiting? Nothing planned in the immediate future, but I mean it is kind of idea that we've logged in our idea bank. Paul says, always forget to turn off wildfire when I switch locations. We discussed an idea, I think it was last week, where maybe a piece of equipment you unlock and you can set kind of like a bait disarmer piece of equipment, and you can set it to a number. Say you set it to 10, and every time you hunt, it'll tick down to 9, 8, 7. And when it hits 0, it'll just disarm your bait for you, which effectively pauses the game. And so it'd be interesting to get feedback if that's something you'd like to see, kind of empower you to take on the more active areas, but still in a passive manner. Certainly be useful in situations, Queso Geyser, if you know there are 4 hunts left in your epic eruption and you're sitting on 10 pieces of wildfire, you could set it to please disarm my bait 4 hunts, and you know the second the eruption ends, your wildfire is off your trap, and the game will wait for you to come back to decide what you want to do. Labyrinth would be very useful. You could just craft a big batch of glowing gruyere, and when you start up a short hallway, you could say, hey, just disarm my bait in 10 hunts, please, so I don't waste any of my glowing gruyere in an intersection. Sally says, if you gold Queen Quesada, you get enough bland to finish the geyser from Unstable Gadgets. Yeah, for sure, actually. Capturing Queen Quesada is a great way to get bland queso as well. Eileen has almost 1.5 million bland and 8k cork. Wildfire just about self-sustains for me. For sure, I think you can find a way to sustain it by just making sure you don't use too much wildfire during an epic eruption, and especially we kind of dialed that up a little bit to make it a little bit easier to find that moment of which you could self-sustain, let you do a few more hunts with wildfire before you have to switch to flaming. But for sure, if you're kind of find yourself back at square one a lot, I would say when you do an epic eruption, maybe start with just 10 hunts with wildfire, something like that. Do the rest with flaming, see where you're at, and see if you start to slowly accumulate more wildfire than you're spending. That's kind of the sweet spot you want to be in. How will the King's Arms and Tournament Hall be included in Valour Rift? Probably not in any significant capacity. Will there be any future event versions of library research tasks? Probably not. It's just kind of an area of the game that needs a little bit of an overhaul from both a content perspective as well as a technical perspective. So it's technically challenging to implement a library assignment, and then it's also sort of challenging or a little awkward to then go through library assignments gameplay-wise. So it's kind of not something maybe we devote too much time to until we could overhaul it. KDM says, oh, 255, I heard 2,500. No, certainly not. That would be lengthy. Now that said, because it's infinitely replayable, there's the opportunity to spend thousands of hunts in the Valour Rift and see how high you can push up your prestige. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know where we'll sort of put the eclipse or the adventure completion moment. I don't think it would be too crazy. We'll leave some room to go for some above and beyond stretch goals as well. Jason says, would you guys be okay on time leading up towards event season? Is the ghost ship going to be repeated there? Probably, that's the plan. So if all goes according to plan, Valour Rift comes together well, then it would come out before event season. And then a lot of the events will be the same as they were in the previous years. And so that'll also afford us time to be working on the next Archduke area during event season, knowing that repeating event is a little bit easier to do than starting from scratch. Paul doesn't hate the idea for saving expensive items and cheese. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been lots of suggestions of, when should my wild tonic turn itself off, or like the lantern oil turns itself off when you hit an intersection. That feels very intuitive because obviously it doesn't do anything in an intersection. But different hunters might want it to do different things during different situations. So we're kind of looking at a way to cover all the use cases in a way that is the most empowering to the player, so you get to decide when you want your stuff to turn off. Will they update the queso geyser? New updates coming. Is it possible to expand on the use of the Dragon Ember? No, I don't think there's a way to incorporate it in any sort of meaningful way. And it'd be a little bit weird to go back down to a night area to collect some embers to then go back up into a count and above area to use it. So if they were to have a use, it would probably just be a niche one-off thing if we gave it a use in the future, or that item would also be obtainable in a higher level area as well. Was sustainability mathematically possible for the update? People often say it isn't, but I assumed it is supposed to. It would be difficult to get just right, and it wasn't quite as rewarding as it was after that update. So you'd be mixing in a little bit of hot with your flaming, whereas now you can just mix in some flaming with your wildfire. Is it possible to include a restart function of the Queso Geyser eruption? Yeah, not sure. I would give it some thought, but there's kind of some awkwardness with retreating as well. So kind of lean towards not adding that. Thomas says, lantern already disarmed when at intersection. Yeah, and that's something obvious where, of course, every hunter is not going to want to have their lantern lit in an intersection because it doesn't do anything. But as opposed to Wild Tonic or even something like Moon Cheese when you're finishing up Fort Rocks and you go back to the day, it drops a lot of rocks, so it's a little bit situational of which hunters at which point would want certain things to happen. And so that's why, if anything, I think we'd explore something that lets players decide what they want to happen, rather than making a decision there, and now there's another group of players like, whoa, whoa, I wish it didn't do this, right? So it kind of is the most empowering. Maybe some Rift-themed skins in the King's Arms when Valour Rift releases. I'll keep that in mind for sure. We recently built a new tool to see what the most popular traps are, and that just helps because the artists always, we'd say, okay, we're going to add some skins as part of this release, some trap skins, and always be a challenge about, well, what traps should we do? And so now there's a nice little tool where we can see what's popular for a certain date range. So let me pull back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, the last 4 months. Over the last 4 months, the most popular trap has been the Golem Guardian trap, with 8.5% of players in the last 4 months have at least taken one hunt with it. And on average, those who use it have been doing 38.7 hunts per day with that trap. School Sharks is in number 2, the Chrome Stormrot Ballista is in number 3, then the Infinite Labyrinth, the Minorca, the Chrome Grand Arcanum trap is up there, Ember Prison Core, Chrome Monsterbot, the Surprise Party trap as well. So that's what we're using to help us decide what trap skins to add, as we kind of see what players have been using with. Not just who owns the traps, but who's actively has them armed and actually doing hunts with that trap armed. Paul says, I mean, we need to be somewhat involved playing the game so I don't get burned out, y'all, but wildfire, no pun intended. Yeah, for sure. There's a bit of a balance there in terms of kind of an appointment that gets set, like, hey, I'm going to return right here. But there's also just some awkwardness, right? Where if the choice is, I'm going to bed soon, and I know that I'm going to be wasting something if I don't come back and check it in 2 hours, then your choices are either to move to a different location, change your trap setup, go through all that, and then remember to come back in the morning, or just disarm your bait and make 0 progress overnight. It'd be nice to have one more choice of, hey, what do you want to do? Do you, instead of making 0 progress overnight or moving locations, do you just want to make a little bit of progress overnight, come back and make some decisions when you get back? Some people have had 9 runs, no rib, as certainly expected. I don't think you would get one in 9 runs. It's coming up on the expected average, actually. It's getting there. Fidel says, Valour Rift, seriously, yes, that is what we are currently working on as an Archduke level area. We're also exploring an Archduke area where you use multiple power types, but the timing wouldn't quite work out well, and there's quite a desperate need to have an Archduke area in the game. So we wanted something a little bit smaller scope to develop and produce, but still kind of meaty in terms of how much there is to explore and time you can kind of spend in different stretch goals to explore. Whereas something else that involves all power types, that means there's going to be a lot more mice, because we need mice for all the power types, so it's going to take a lot more time to put together, but then it'll also have a whole lot even more to explore and go through. Almost feel like a game within a game in some ways, being that kind of large scale. Red says the Golem Guardian is already a skin. Yeah, absolutely. That is kind of ironic that the most popular trap at the moment is the Golem Guardian, but that's the one trap that we could not add skins for because it has a very special mechanic where it changes power types when you arm different skins. Well, Golem Guardian is 5 traps in one, says Swift. Yeah, it probably plays a big role of why it is so popular. Zapke is on 242 Valor catches and no rib. That is definitely, you'd be lucky to get one that quick. I don't know how many catches I have. I'm back to my living garden grind now. I have accomplished all I set out to in the geyser. Let's see here, I closed the game to save my computer some cycles. Ooh, I'm out of cheese. I'll fix that in a bit. How many Valor did I get? I think I crowned it, and then I was happy with that. Search feature, I love it. I have 228 Valor catches. I didn't get a rib either. I'll probably buy one in a little bit. With all the gold I'm raking in the living garden, I'll buy some. Dave, why is Cinderstorm not on a Grand Tour map? I believe it can appear on it. It's not every single mouse in the area. It's close to it. One day, yeah, we have a nice little tool that will visually display all the mice in the groups. Should publish that one day. How many mice are there for Valour Rift? Let me check. Let me open the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet's getting to be a doozy. This area is interesting in that there's not too much, well, there's number crunching, I guess, but a lot of it, I think, is just finding good starting points and then just kind of what we call Monte Carlo, and you're just playing through it, tweak something, play through it again and see how it worked out, because there's just so many variables kicking around. So at the moment, I suspect we're going to probably add one more mouse, but we'll see. There are 24 mice. There is one mouse themed for every floor of the gauntlet, which is all 7 from Puppet, Thief, Melee, Bard, Magic, Noble, Dust. And then there's a champion of every floor, so all those themes, kind of 2 mice per theme, and one's a champion. Each champion you can only capture once per run going through the gauntlet. That's the last mouse on the floor, and it's a little tougher to beat, so it's a bit of a tough hill to push past. There's the Eclipse itself. There are some mice that are going to drop items used to create gauntlet string cheese. There's a couple of those. There's some generic gauntlet mice as well of varying difficulty. There's some unique mice that only get added to the tower if you are at a certain prestige level. And so those sort of stretch out how fast you complete the mouse collection, as well as they play a role in making it harder and harder as you try on more difficult prestige. At the moment, the one is an 80% chance to catch, and the one's a 25% chance to catch. So it's quite dramatically different. So when those get added to the encounter pool, it makes the whole thing harder to go through, but they only appear when you take on higher level prestige. I've lost the chat. Okay, I'm buying rib shutters. Oh, why not? What else am I going to use my gold for? Why is Queso Extractor is not on a Grand Tour map and Queso Canyon map? Why is Cinderstorm only on the Geyser map, but not on the Grand Tour map? I think it can appear on the Grand Tour map. Let me double check. The Queso Extractor, though, is somewhat, if I recall correctly, a mouse that you're kind of not too excited to catch. Its encounter rate goes up as you use worse and worse cheese. This is actually kind of hard to pull up. Let me see, I'll do a little research here. Trunk, application, content, treasure maps. Alright, I don't know what this treasure map's called. There is, no, Grand Tour, cool. And then what did we call the Queso Geyser map? Or Queso Canyon, rather. Search Canyon. It is called Queso Canyoneers, that's it. So the Canyoneers, the Extractor mouse, correct, yeah, the Extractor mouse, there's even a note here on the side that says intentionally left off maps do have a very low attraction rate with good cheese. And so just sometimes wherever we can, it feels unintuitive to try to hunt in a way that's inefficient or like purposefully employ a bad strategy just so you can pick up a specific mouse. So that's why that one's left off the Queso Canyoneers. Now the Grand Tour, oh, these mice have cryptic types. We need a spreadsheet. Open up the Queso Geyser spreadsheet. What is the Cinderstorm called? Cinderstorm is Epic Eruption Large. Of course. Yeah, you're correct. The Cinderstorm is not on the map. Yeah, we could look into that. I don't know, that might have been a bit of an oversight. Eruption Dragons. What am I looking for? Geyser Eruption Dragon. Small, medium, but no large. Yeah, couldn't tell you. Won't appear on the maps, though. Brian says, can't wait for Rift Puppet Master to be 2 times as rare as Corky. I don't think any of them are particularly rare on any of the floors. Actually, that'll be a good segue into this week's trivia. Let me double check. Obviously, really early days here. Gauntlet encounters. Now, the unique floor mouse is always around about a 1 in 3 chance to find. And then the generic mice all kind of vary in rarity. Probably the most rare one is there's mouse is really hard to catch. And that one's also kind of the least frequent, probably 1 every 20 hunts you come across it. But you come across it the whole way up the gauntlet. So unlike the floor mice that you kind of only have a window in which you can encounter them, the generic ones are all the way up floors 1 through 8, or 1 through 7 rather. All right, that is a good segue into trivia. So let me see what I can do here. Blank that out. I'm back. I'm back. Oh, and now I've covered that up. Look what I've done. It's kind of small. Whoa, yeah, size 4000 font. That's what it looks like. If you said 4000, it's a good size. All right, which mouse in the King's Gauntlet is arguably the most difficult to attract? Look at this live editing. Most difficult to attract / accumulate catches for. Ooh, I must have been tired when I wrote that. So in the original King's Gauntlet, which the Puppet Master? No, I don't think it's the Puppet Master. This is perhaps, I think Red Bastard has it correct, at least what I had in mind. Actually, Q had it first, the Necromancer. The Necromancer is, in my mind, correct. It is the most difficult to attract. If you were setting out on the goal of, like, I'm going to capture 500 of each of the mice, I'm pretty sure that will be the last one that you get the 500th catch for. Because it is on floor 7, and it only has a 20% encounter rate. So you got to work all your way up to make the tier 7 cheese, and then when you get up there, you only have a 1 in 5 chance of attracting it. And so it'll take you quite a long time during a King's Crown. You probably crown the Eclipse before you crowned that mouse. Necromancer is way more common than the Puppet Master, but the Puppet Master, you don't need very good cheese. Ooh. Famous gauntlet. So the Puppet Master. Yeah, the Puppet Master is just miscellaneous cheese. So if you're setting out to capture 500 Puppet Masters, you do it in about 1,000 hunts, but you would never have to upgrade your cheese once. Whereas if you're setting out to capture 500 Necromancers, you'd have to farm up the tier 7 cheese. You might spend 1,000 hunts just accumulating enough tier 7 cheese to begin with. But because there's only 2 mice in the tier, yeah, but the Puppet Master has a 2%. It'd be interesting actually to kind of crunch the numbers out here and see how many hunts does it take to make 1 piece of tier 7 cheese, and then multiply that by 500. Yeah, and then multiply that by using the 20% there, putting me on the spot here, versus just a flat 2% encounter rate of the Puppet Master. And which one would you gold crown first? I wonder how many I have here. Gauntlet. So I have 12 Puppet Masters and 19 Necromancers. That might be a symptom of, well, as some event rewards and stuff. So I guess if you take events into consideration, or even the King's Arms, buying some potions, or using special equipment to boost your drop rate of potions in the gauntlet, maybe the Puppet Master would be harder. That'd be interesting, an interesting thought experience. So we'll give an honorable mention to both. Both the Puppet Master and the Necromancer being both tough mice to accumulate a gold crown for. And on that note, my laptop is beginning to explode, so let's get the reward link out. Who would have thought encoding video would be that hard? Reward link coming in the chat. Thought experiment, we don't get to try it out with 15-second hunts on Longtail. Well, you could just straight up crunch the numbers there, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't know the number of hunts that it takes to create a tier 7 cheese on average. So that'd be interesting to work out. The storm is the laptop. Yeah, if you're hearing the sound of rain, it is my laptop fan, as it has reached the point of encoding video for 50 minutes and it wants to give up. Now, on that note, I did not mean to stick around for this long. Lost track of time. All the great comments, suggestions, and feedback in the chat. I definitely want to sort out a few loose ends with the Valour Rift. Like I said, we're having a meeting this afternoon as well. We're going over some changes to the beginning of the game, as well as hopefully firming up some details for the Queso Geyser / Queso Canyon mini event. But I do want to wrap up some work I'm doing on the Valour Rift so that on Monday we can all get together with the team that's working on that and look at some HUD concepts, and then hopefully we'll be in good shape to start playing through it at a more serious capacity next week. Good luck to everyone getting ribbed. I gave up on my rib. I tried my luck, didn't get one. I'm back to my living garden grind, my quest for 1,000 twisted carmines. But I will say, in the meantime, I have been craving eating ribs now, so that has to happen at some point. And let me tweak this back around. So no Giorgio invasion. I was expecting a final Giorgio invasion. Didn't work out, but thanks for joining me, hunters. We'll see you next week. I would be fairly confident that it'll be Jacob. I'm going to check the calendar here. Yeah, we have a due date next week. But nothing, no meetings or anything scheduled at the moment. So I would think Jacob will join you next week for live painting. Probably a pretty safe bet he'll be doing some Valour Rift art, but we'll see what he gets up to. Paul says, does 1K give you platinum? Not yet. One day we'll have higher tier crowns. Thanks to him, Bubai. Thanks for the update. Just preparing my thanks for watching slide. So I'll catch you probably in 2 weeks. You'll see Jacob next week. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Happy hunting.
Have you ever gave up hope, looking for a way to cope, all alone in a castle by yourself, knowing you were made to rule, looking like a royal fool, if you only had someone to help. We got to clean these rodents out. There ain't no way we're gonna let them run this place. I'll show them what this king's about. It won't be long before we get them on the run. Here's what I propose we do. I'm gonna count on you, give you all the cheese that you could ever want. If you wanna be your best, put your trap up to the test. Buy some super brie and watch the suckers come.